What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Lawrence for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. He had a question, and I've had somebody ask me this question before. It's just my opinion, don't mean that what I'm saying was going to actually happen, but this is what I think could have happened. And I think it was a good chance that it could have happened, right? What if the Chicago Bulls never traded Charles Oakley? Now, in real life, Charles Oakley was traded from the Chicago Bulls to New York Knicks on June 27th, 1988. He was traded to New York Knicks in exchange for Bill Cartwright, because what was happening was, partially, I think they did it. Well, the main reason they did it, at least the Front Street reason they did it, is because they felt like they could develop Horace Grant, who they got in the draft in '87, to be an even better player than Charles Oakley, right? So they felt like Horace Grant had more upside, and they needed a big man that could shoot or could score. Charles Oakley was not a guy that was offensively talented, especially at that time. Although he could get you 12, 13 points a night, he wasn't a great offensive player, right? So they thought they could kill two birds with one stone. I'll tell you another reason they did it too. Because Chicago Bulls organization was cheap as shit. And Oakley was going to be due more money, whereas Pippen and Grant were still on their rookie contracts. They just barely got into the league at that point. But this is the thing. They could have kept Charles Oakley and still won championships. I'm going to tell you why. In hindsight, let's think about this. In hindsight, was Horace Grant really that much better than Charles Oakley? I mean, I guess you could say he was a better overall post player offensively. But I like Charles Oakley's grit and his intensity. He matched Chicago. He was perfect for Michael Jordan, right? Plus, we all know that Horace Grant ended up being a snitch. He was the leak to the Sam Smith's The Jordan Rules book, came out in '91. And I think what Chicago should have did ultimately, if you could do it over again, was move on from Horace Grant, trade his ass, keep Scottie Pippen, of course. And this is where I think they should have did that all season. And I said this before. And they could have done it because it would have been financially feasible, because Jordan wasn't getting that much money. Jordan was getting most of his money off endorsements. Pippen was still on his rookie contract, and Pippen never really made much money anyway, right? Oakley was making he was going to make about $1 million a year. So financially, they could have done this, and they considered doing it. What Chicago should have did was keep Charles Oakley and sign Moses Malone as a free agent. Could you imagine that front court of Moses Malone and Charles Oakley for the Chicago Bulls? Do you think the bad boy Pistons would have got away with that shit? No. I'm not saying they're going to be, PUSSY. I'm not saying that. But all of that extracurricular stuff, the Jordan rules, I don't see it being implemented as well. I don't see John Sally and Dennis Rodman and Bill Laimbeer getting away with the rough house tactics that they did against the Bulls after Charles Oakley was gone. And Moses Malone is there too. Moses 6'10", 265, 270. To think about it. Did the bad boy Pistons really pull that crap with the Knicks? I don't remember seeing too many highlights of that. I'm not saying he didn't get into it, but I don't remember Bill Laimbeer getting Xavier McDaniel face and Charles Oakley face like that. You know what I'm saying? They got in the other team faces, but now people will say like, well, Charles Oakley didn't really fit triangle offense, right? And they weren't really running triangle 88 because the Collins was still there. But let's just say things happen the same way, right? Well, the triangle never really called for centers to be big time scorers anyway. And Luke Longley did just fine. And Luke just had, because when you think about it, all their big men, they weren't really required to score. Many of them were foul machines, and they were just out there just playing defense and rebounding, right? And that's Charles Oakley's bread and butter. And Charles Oakley had that 10 to 12 foot baseline jumper. And when you think about it, what did Luke Longley shoot? What did Bill Winnington shoot? What did Horace Grant shoot? That same 10 to 12 foot baseline jump shot. So he'd have fit perfectly. Now, Moses, I don't think he'd have been averaging 20 points a game with Chicago, but I could see him doing more than Bill Cartwright at that stage. If I remember correctly, let me see. I think they're about the same age. They might have been about the same age at that time, or maybe Moses was a little bit older. But Moses was still averaging like 20 and 12, and he was in his early 30s then, right? So I could see with Chicago, Moses giving the Bulls 18 and 12, 18 and 11, 18 and 11, I say, right? So Moses give you 18 and 11. Oakley will give you probably at this point now 10 and 12. Jordan still give you his customary 32, 33. Pippen's developing now, 13, 14 points. So I could definitely see the Bulls championship era with that front court and Pippen and Jordan and Pippen developing. And then you can focus more on Pippen and not so much Grant. I could see them winning a championship much, much earlier. I don't know about 88, 89, but 89, 90, I could see them going to the finals that year. Whether they beat Portland or not, I'm not sure. I wouldn't bet against Michael Jordan. Because in real life, the Pistons did worse against the Bulls, who weren't as talented on paper as Portland. The Pistons did worse against the Bulls than they did against the Portland Trailblazers. So I would argue this would be a more talented front line, obviously. And, who does Portland have? Kevin Duckworth? Moses Malone, I think, will outplay him, even at that stage of his career. Kevin Duckworth had, let's just say, conditioning issues. Charles Oakley was Buck Williams there in 90? I'm not sure if Buck was there in 90 in Portland. I know he was there in 92. But, yeah, man, I just think the Bulls dynasty could have kicked off earlier. And I think they could have won many championships. Now, Moses was older, right? So ultimately, by 92, they might have to move on from him. That's fine. And they'll just have to find another center that fits into their system. But that dynasty could have continued into the 90s, well into the 90s. And I don't think they needed Horace Grant. They could have had Charles Oakley, and Oakley be looked at differently. Charles Oakley, 6, 7 NBA championships, Hall of Famer. Probably, because he's playing in Chicago, I don't know if he'd won a Defensive Player of the Year award, but you know how that works. He would have been favorited more. So I wouldn't be surprised he even won one of those damn things. But anyway, and plus, man, Charles Oakley, it was Michael Jordan's stickmate, man. The trust would have been there. The whole dynamic would have been different, man. When Jordan lost Charles Oakley, man, he lost that guard dog out there, and Pippen and Grant were kind of soft, man, and the Pistons saw that shit. But with Charles Oakley is still there, and Moses Malone, if he was signed, which they could seriously consider in real life, hell, there's a chance the Pistons championships don't even happen. It's possible. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.